Hi and welcome to another tech webinar. My name is Hans-Jørgen Jonsrud. I'm working as a strategic Nordic vendor manager to our AWS, and we are now having a Nordic webinar toward today's agenda, which are data protection and continuity on AWS with Veeam. And I will just show the landing page for our webinars before we kick it off. We are having the Tech Wednesdays and with different themes. And we had two webinars the last 2 months, one on compute on AWS and one on access and modernize and migrate on AWS, which are recorded and are on the landing page to be seen by your guys later on. We will, for today's webinar, toward data protection and continuity on Veeam, have Mikkel from TD SYNNEX doing a first presentation toward it. And then we have Martin from Veeam presenting some more toward it. And then we're ending up with Gustav from TD SYNNEX presenting the click to run and how we can support you in operating on the solution. So with that, I would like to give the word to Mikkel, which will kick it off.
Thank you, Hans-Jørgen. So my name is Mikkel Christensen, and I am a business development manager here at the TD SYNNEX in Denmark. My responsibilities cover AWS and Veeam. And today's topic, as Hans-Jørgen just mentioned, is the wonderful benefits you can get if you cross-pollinate the two of them. And that's what we'll be talking about today. So let me just share my presentation here. So give me a second. Boom. Good. I hope that you guys can see the full screen now.
Yes.
Good stuff. Let's jump right into the agenda. Do you want to cover that, Hans-Jørgen?
We just did.
Okay. Yeah. Good. So let's then move more into the first topic of the agenda, and that is really about how you can combine both Veeam and AWS. What are the benefits of doing that? That's one. Secondly, what are the individual components coming from Veeam and AWS? And once you combine them, how will you then get benefits from using a TD SYNNEX as a distributor? And then obviously the whole idea is that you have synergies from those three components put together, Veeam, AWS, and TD SYNNEX. So that will be a something that is greater than the individual parts by themselves. So why TD SYNNEX and AWS partnership? Well, to begin with, AWS is a leading hyperscaler. It's perhaps, I guess, the first hyperscaler out there. It was originally born out of the IT department of Amazon, the bookstore. So originally when Jeff Bezos, he started his Amazon.com, he found out that they had so massive and different kind of IT requirements by starting this web shop that they didn't really find anything that suited for them. So that they started developing IT components by themselves, and that eventually turned into such a big business that AWS, Amazon Web Services, was sort of like created as a separate entity of Amazon itself. And right now, Amazon Web Services is actually bigger than Amazon, the bookstore, as we all know and love. So that's quite interesting, and to see how that whole thing has grown. One of the things also that AWS themselves really highlight is the fact that once you go up into the cloud, and if you move a shift from having your own data center sitting in your own basement, or you have a data center sitting in a managed service provider, then you'll be hosting servers at a smaller scale. If you do it at a huge scale as AWS does, you will have all the technologies, know-how, but most importantly, scale that will really allow you to lower your CO2 footprint. And that is something we obviously all need to do going forward, especially on a especially on a company basis. So we have established a strong partnership with AWS themselves. So that means that both the TD SYNNEX and AWS will continuously work together and make each other stronger by combining the technologies from AWS, combine them with the understanding and the knowledge we have of the partner landscape in the Nordics. And as such, we can really deliver solutions to the wider partner network, and really making sure that we again sort of can harvest those synergies of working together. So once you start working with AWS, you quickly find out that it's a huge universe out there. There are so many products, there are so many possibilities, and the best way of really start utilizing those possibilities is really making sure you take the training which is available out there. TD SYNNEX has a lot of trainings that we can put you guys on. But we also have lots of support, so we can do it for you, we can do it with you, or we could do it together with you guys, your IT partners. So those are some of the things that we will offer with this collaboration. And then finally, we also have the direct access to AWS, meaning that if you as a partner out there find that you have a specific need that you have looked into, you don't really can see if an existing solution works for you, then we can really have a direct dialogue with AWS FC, and we can change something for you, or if we can find a different answer for you that will somehow cater even more to your specific benefit. So, and finally, one of the things which you really see when you go to some of the hyperscalers, in particular AWS, is they have some of the leading and bleeding edge technologies out there, among which are AI, which can really help you automate lots of different processes, which you could not do in the past. So it's all about, you know, when you jump into the cloud, it's not just the plain old lift and shift the minute talk about, but it's a whole new ball game when you shift into the cloud. And also, when you then collaborate with TD SYNNEX together with AWS, there are also some specific benefits, economic benefits of using TD SYNNEX as a distributor. So in that sense, you are able to harvest economies of scale once you put all your different AWS customers in one pool. So jumping a little bit into the whole why Veeam, why use them as a backup vendor. So they are a leading backup solution out there. If you look into reports from Gartner or Forrester, they will all tell you that they are one of the very bleeding edge leaders out there in backup technology. They're situated all the way up to the right in the Forrester wave. They're sitting in the first quadrant of the Gartner Magic Quadrant. So they are really there where they are very innovative, and they always have the latest and the greatest solution out there. Furthermore, they are able to back up both on premises, your good old-fashioned virtual machines, but also more and more now also Veeam are able to provide you with backup of your cloud solutions as well, and that's obviously one of the topics of today. They can also back up Office 365 solutions. Many people, they think that if you have a Microsoft 365 solution, that all is well and good, that all your documents will be sitting nicely and securely in the cloud. They are not. You only have 30 days of retention. There you need a strong backup solution such as Veeam to really make sure that you have all your documents covered there, both in Teams, SharePoint, and obviously OneDrive and Mail, and being able to go back and have retention. One of the latest features that Salesforce has released is backup of Salesforce, which is one of the leading CRM solutions out there. Those are also some of the solutions that can somehow break down, or they can get corrupted, or you can somehow have some kind of user interface or whatnot that will sort of like necessitate for you to be able to roll back to a former version or somehow recreate past data. And those are some of the features which, again, like Microsoft, you don't have natively in the Salesforce cloud. Veeam will be able to provide that for you as an extra benefit. One of the things we also really hear about that are hitting companies almost every day out there, excuse me, is obviously ransomware. If you get hit by a ransomware attack, all your files can be locked. They can be, locked or deleted, and obviously encrypted. That goes to all the data you might have be sitting on your on-premise or in the cloud, and obviously also your mail. So you want to be able to do a quick restore from that. That's also one of the things which Veeam has some really strong features within. So if you're saying, okay, Mikkel, that sounds great. How do I get started with it? There are some prerequisites. First of all, you need to be signed up as a TD SYNNEX customer. This is more of a formality, but it basically means that you need to reach out to one of the TD SYNNEX guys here today. Myself would be a good guess, and really, you make sure that you get an account with us. You need to be credit approved and all that. But basically, that's a simple process. After that, you need to be registered as an AWS reseller. That's also a process which you need to go through. There are some steps and requirements to get signed up as an AWS reseller. It's quite simple, but there are also just some things which need to doing before we can sort of like proceed. Furthermore, there are some legal requirements, some legal documents which we need to sign and also make sure that we can store the data and keep all the data and all that. Those are, the very familiar GDPR requirements. And there are some trainings and certifications which you guys need to take if you potentially jump on the bandwagon, both on Veeam and AWS, in order to make sure that you sort of like fulfill all the different requirements from both Veeam and AWS. But all in all, I would say that it is risk-free to get started with this. There are no sort of like money out of your wallet to start with both AWS and Veeam. So if you just want to have like a quick toe in the water, it is very quick and risk-free to get started. And it will really be a great way of you as a partner to take a new step into the cloud and do it with both a leading hyperscaler and a leading backup solution. So I'll hand the word over to you, Martin.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
So first of all, thank you for the invite. Always nice to be recognized. So I was asked to talk a little bit about why secure data in multiple locations and why secure data when it's in cloud. And this has nothing to do with Veeam. Actually, it doesn't matter what platform you're working on. You should always think like this. So what we did in Veeam was we did a little survey where we asked our customers and potential customers where do you actually lose data. And it's quite fun to look at that. Even though we move data into the cloud, the causes of loss of data is the same. So you need to be able to recover from a backup, because these outages also, maybe not the infrastructure network outage would be so great in the cloud. Hopefully it would not. But again, you're putting your data out on some MPLS, VPN, dark fiber, connections out there. So maybe that is even more relevant now that you have got good network connectivity. But in general, the threats are the same. So just as Mikkel said, we're doing backup of multiple things now, not just, a lot of people knows us from the on-premise hypervisors, but we are out there doing backup SaaS solutions, Salesforce and so forth. So it's not just the on-premise and the cloud and the physical service. So looking at a platform like AWS, what are the responsibilities out there? Definitely AWS delivers a lot of responsibilities. You don't have to cool your servers. You don't have to wrap and stack your servers anymore. That's great. We can buy it through a web portal. But still, the responsibility of actually having the platform running, the data that's in the platform, making sure your business is running, legal compliance, all that. That is still your responsibilities. So looking at this responsibility highlight or way of layering stuff, the backup also is your responsibilities. And I could of course sit here and talk about like the 8 or 9 or maybe 10 versions of how you could lose your data or your platform out in cloud. But I'm not going to do that. I'm more wants to focus on what do we have to think about when we want to recover something. So looking at this timeline, let's imagine that everything is normal. We're just running good old the data center out here on the left, normal uses, everything is good. So what we in backup terms, when you're designing a backup solution for any given system, what you want to think about is something called the RPOs. So what is an RPO? An RPO is recovery point objective. So basically it is about having as small RPOs as possible, meaning that we want to be able to go in and back up data every second. Imagine us being able to do backup every single bit and bytes generated in your company. Of course, with the technology today, it's not doable. Not even AWS can we do that. We do have some on-prem systems that are getting very, very close, but still we're not in, being able to back up every second. That would be preferable, of course. But we want to have as low as possible, have those RPOs as low as possible. For some companies, it might be once a day. Back in the 80s or 70s, it was good enough just to have a backup every week. But I think these days, with the importance of data, we want to really lower those RPOs to down as a few hours as possible, right? So imagine us having now in this case, it's just this ransomware attack because it comes from a ransomware slide deck, but imagine us having a breakdown. The next thing we want to focus about is actually having the recovery time objective, the RTOs. We want to do really, really fast recovery, right? Because when we are recovering, we don't want to sit and wait for a couple of days or maybe a year, I don't know, a half a year before the system is back online as we liked it. So the recovery time objective is also very important. And this actually summarizes on any IT system. It doesn't matter if it's on-premise, even if it's a laptop, all this it doesn't matter where we are talking. We just want as low RPOs and as low RTOs as possible. So having that in mind, things comes with a cost. If we have a very, very low RPO and a very, very low RTO, it becomes very, very expensive. And to be honest, that story continues in the cloud. If you want to continue having a really, really high level of backup, and we want to be able to recover really, really fast, first of all, we have to add a lot of data into the backup solution to have low RPOs. But we also have to have a really, really fast system to do the RTOs. So always remember that that these things doesn't cost cheap or doesn't come cheap. But what we are focusing on in Veeam is trying to deliver the RPOs and the RTOs as small as possible with with a well-balanced cost here, right? Then, of course, the big question is, how are you going to react when you get hit? What is your reaction time? So when I talk to customers about reaction time from when you get hit or something is breaking down and you have to recover for backup, it all comes down to practice. You have to practice your reaction. You have to imagine what happens if this happened. What am I going to do if this happened? It's kind of a fallback plan on your system. But it also, when it comes to backup solutions, it's also about knowing your backup solution, knowing your options. If I told you that there was 140 different ways of restoring data with the Veeam portfolio, I mean, who's going to know the 140? Not even I, who work with it every day. This product I see every day. I can't even explain what the 140 restores are. So reaction time is about sitting down and thinking, what am I going to do if I'm being hit by this? It's about following the media, what's going on out there, listening to the security experts and say, what's going to happen if I get hit by this? What am I going to react? How am I going to react? So this is a really good discussion. I love this slide here. It's a really good discussion on any given system, and it even applies to AWS. Another thing in Veeam we're very focused on is how do we then design a solution to benefit or to compensate to having a low RTO and a low RPO. So the first thing is we state that we should have 3 copies of data. So it means that we have some production. Now it's just a virtual machine, but it could be any production data. And then we should have a backup, and then we should even have a backup of a backup, right? So 3 copies of the same data. I know it costs some money, but it's a good thing. Trust me, when you're hit by something, that you got those 3 copies. Number 2 is putting on 2 different medias. 2 different medias doesn't have to be the old-fashioned medias. Now I displayed here a spinning disk and a tape, but it doesn't have to be on 2 different physical devices. It can just be on 2 different clouds. Or heck, it can even be in 2 different locations or 2 different regions in AWS. It really depends on what risk you want to take. But it's a good idea to think about having the 2 copies, the 2 backup copies in 2 different locations, 2 different medias, or maybe 2 different technologies. The one in the 3-2-1 rule is about having one offsite. What is the definition of offsite? Where is the offsite versus cloud, right? Because the cloud is everywhere. No, it's not. But, offsite is just put it away, put it aside somewhere else, maybe onto somebody else, maybe onto a service provider, or maybe just onto another AWS region. But I'll come back to that. The 2 last things out to the right is about having 1 copy. That's the Veeam definition. So the 3-2-1 is for all backup vendors, but the 1-0 out here on the side is the Veeam specific focus. So the extra 1 is about having 1 immutable. And immutable means not being able to modify data. It's also called worm. Not being able to modify data, but still be able to read the data, right? That's what we call immutable. Air-gapped, the king of air-gapped and offline is definitely tape. Do you want to put the cloud on tape again? We're not going to touch that today. We can actually do that, but that's not my point. And the last 0 is about recovering. Do you know you can recover? I mean, are you going to hit the recovery button and unfortunately, the platform is not supported anymore, or your data is too old, and that also comes back to. I always laugh once in a while when I hear these companies. Oh, we want to keep data for 10 years. I'm like, great. Are you going to hit the recovery button on 10-year-old data? Let me see you recover that into a cloud that has been updated like 1,000 times in 10 years, right? So, yeah, verify that you can actually recover your data. So the second thing I've been asked to talk about is about how do we go about these challenges and especially when we talk about AWS. So just to talk about AWS by itself is probably it's great. But I want to state also from Veeam, we don't see AWS as the only vendor. We see multiple vendors out there. And now when we talk about the public hyperscalers, I took the big 3 in here. So what we can do now, we come, it's no surprise that we come from an on-premise environment. But what we're trying to do is to have these arrows in both directions, even within the clouds, but also across the clouds. So what we want to be able to do in Veeam and are able to do is actually to do backup and a backup internal and recovery between all platforms. Then this means that you as a customer gets the flexibility, and I also think this is key for a lot of public cloud vendor to talk about that. Hey, move on to our cloud, but we got the flexibilities that you can move on to another cloud. Maybe somebody comes up with a chatbot that's really good that you want to utilize, or who knows, right? So you want to be able to move your data around, and the same thing goes with backup. We want to be able to move our backups around. So when we look at it from Veeam, we're looking at it as a hybrid and multi-cloud, we want to be able to support that. That means that it should be one universal license. So it is, when you buy a Veeam license, it's a universal license. It covers all clouds, all on-premises. You can move data back and forth as you want to. You have one console for seeing all your backup data. So that's the key things from our side. So let's dig in a bit into the AWS configuration and what is actually technical going on in there. So we're going to jump into the techie part of stuff. So first of all, I want to say, we cannot back up everything on AWS today. So be sure when you look at the AWS platform and you look at what services up there you're going to utilize, make sure that the backup vendor is actually supporting that. I know AWS itself got some things, but there are also some things out there that cannot be backed up. So you want to make sure when you go into AWS or utilizing AWS that if you put critical data that you want to back up, that you also have a backup vendor that actually supports that. But looking from Veeam perspective, we got the possibilities to actually segregate this. So you can have a backup account. So if you look at the pink outline here, you can look at there's actually a production account where it could maybe be a customer, and then you could be a service provider hosting a backup account. But we can actually across these accounts be able to back up, and we actually recommend that we do a segregated installation where we are running the backups simply for security reasons. So what we can do is we can also do snapshots. So snapshot is a way of backing up data, but it doesn't come into the 3-2-1 because snapshot is a kind of a way to lower our RPOs, right? Recovery point objective, because we can then snapshot on the platform. And snapshot also is awesome when we talk about the RTOs, the recovery time objective, because it's basically a snapshot of virtual machines or databases sitting on storage. So it's just storage snapshot. So using storage snapshot only, we are able to do some awesome RTOs and RPOs. But it's not true backup because it still stays on the platform. We don't get this this 3-2-1 to 2, put it on 2 different media. So you have to think about, okay, I get some RTOs and RPOs that are really good, but I don't get the 3-2-1 rule in this case. So one way we could do that is by, again, adding this secondary place. We could put the data out on an AWS, out on an Amazon S3 that is put it in another region. Another thing that's really awesome in Veeam is no matter whether you're running snapshots of your primary or you're running backup onto a secondary site on another AWS region, you can still recover files. So we can jump inside of these snapshots and recover files. We also got some tools where we can recover data from SQL or other applications you're running inside of these snapshots. But in general, you can always do these file level recovery. And this is also a small reminder on to running other backup vendors. You have to be able to do this single item recovery. So let's talk a bit about, back to this graph about our on-premise, right? How does the on-premise connect into the AWS? Well, we can actually, when you set up your AWS backup, we can actually connect your old on-premise. If you're existing running Veeam, you can actually connect that onto your AWS backup. So you can decide to run it as a AWS only solution, but you can also connect it to your on-premise. And when you connect it to your on-premise, you get some awesome features. First of all, the on-premise backup replication server doesn't move the data. It just looks into the cloud and see what's going up there. So you get the visibilities of where the backups are running. You can do your reports that backups have been run. You can do your data locality reports, where's data placed and so forth. But the really cool thing is you can actually, from the on-premise console, select that you want to do some stuff. You can even restore to Asia, right? So if it's EC2s and you want to recover those into Asia, you can actually grab those from S3 and recover them onto Asia. So you get this cloud mobility I talked about in the beginning. And if you look at the top option here in the menu, it says instant recovery. And people that knows Veeam knows our instant recovery capabilities. So you can actually, if you have an on-premise hypervisor, you can actually ask this virtual machine to boot up on your on-premise hypervisor from your AWS backup. So the AWS platform will actually stream the bits and bytes to run the virtual machine on premise on your hypervisor. And then you will be back online with that virtual machine, and then Veeam will copy down your virtual machine in the background while the machine is running. So some really cool features about the connecting those two technologies together. So that was one way, just backing up AWS. It was also backing up AWS and seeing it in my on-premise console or my one console, or I can actually recover onto some other platforms. But what about if I have an on-premise environment and I want to back up to AWS? Well, we also got that. And one thing that's really nifty about this is we can actually do that as a tiered storage model, meaning that you ask Veeam and say, okay, I want local copies of my on-premise environment because I want these fast RTOs and RPOs. So of course you need a local copy, but I also want to extend this onto my cloud. I want to utilize my AWS instance or my AWS credit onto the cloud. So what you can do in Veeam, you can simply ask Veeam everything that's above, let's say 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, everything that's older than that needs to be tiered onto my AWS. And then what we can do in AWS, we can make sure that it's been placed very, very efficient, both on compression dedupe wise, but also the amount of puts we are doing onto your AWS. That keeps the cost low. The second thing we can do in AWS, we can stage it onto our cheap storage tiers into AWS. So we can stage it onto our Glacier, our deep archive inside of AWS. And also we will make sure that if you do some recovery from the Glacier, that we will grab the data blocks from the cheaper storage. So if you're recovering a full virtual machine onto your on-premise environment, and we have some data blocks that's sitting on your local storage, we will grab those data blocks from a local device and then only access Glacier if there's something really, really unique and blocks we don't got local. So very, very cost efficient also when we talk about recovery. So yeah, now I actually stated right here. So we're actually very, very cost efficient, both of way we place data and how we grab data back from these expensive or cheap storage, but expensive platforms to grab data. Another thing that's very cool about Veeam I forgot to mention was actually we got a cost calculator. So before you set in place your backup, before you hit the first backup button and the first time the backup is running, you actually get a cost. And the reason why we can do a cost estimates is because we know your subscription up there. And AWS is really good at stating what how many dollars does a terabyte cost? How much does it cost to grab a byte or a bit up there? So we know all this stuff, and that's why we can help doing a cost analysis upfront, something we can't do on premise. I wish we could, but yeah. Talk about the security part of things. I haven't drilled into that really, but we do support AWS KMS services. We encrypt data. We have got multi-factor authentication on the platform and so forth. So the full security part of things here are covered, and we are fully integrated to all the AWS technologies that are up there. I didn't want to go through. I think security is something we touched a lot on these days. The data up there, this is just some key highlight. We got these instant recovery. We can do instant recovery at VMs also in the cloud because they're lying on these machines up there. We do policy-based driven backups. Yeah, there's a bunch of benefits of actually running our AWS native backup solution up there. And one thing Mikkel didn't mention is if you're running Kubernetes up in AWS, we also got a product for backing that up. So it's a little bit, you know, it's not a Veeam native. It's actually something we purchased. One of the only acquisitions we have done is a company called Kasten. So it's quite cool. Kasten is a backup solution for Kubernetes and everything that goes inside a Kubernetes framework. That means the Kubernetes is of course the orchestrator of these container environments. And what we do with our Kasten is we actually deploy Kasten on the same platform that you're running your environment. And then Kasten is talking to Kubernetes, and Kubernetes tells us all about where is data placed. Is there a MongoDB that we need to back up? Where are the secure keys? Where are the credentials? What roles? Who got access to what? All these perimeters that are set up in Kubernetes, Kasten goes in and do backups. So it's built for Kubernetes, it is communicated with Kubernetes, and it's really, really easy to use, which is very, very important. And why is it important to have something that's easy to use on a DevOps environment? I tell you why. We got a French company from France where two technical guys had the responsibilities of maintaining the platform. The challenge is that these two guys, if you look at the numbers here, imagine how many services, how many secures, how many pods, the massive amount of DevOps that was made from multiple vendors. There was not just one vendor, it was multiple vendors adding on to this system, and they should sit and do their backup and maintaining these platforms. So that was their responsibilities. So there were two DevOps guys that was responsible of the platform, but there was from the contracted to the subcontracted, there was around 700 developers. And these two guys were in charge of backup. So they really need something very, very simple. And this is where Kasten came in and helped them doing backup of this. Because the cool thing about Kubernetes is it's a framework. You just ask Kubernetes, what is in here? What configs did they use to deploy this version of the application? And Kubernetes provides all that to Kasten, and Kasten could go in and grab that. So Kasten is a really, really awesome tool. It's a little bit out of the Veeam classical portfolio, but if we look at the whole Kubernetes framework, not just the AWS version of it, but looking at the on-premise with the VMware Tanzu, all the other Kubernetes distributions out there, the Kasten platform it's called 10. We call it. The product name is K10. The Kasten platform actually goes in and grab all this data and does a backup. So combining the Kubernetes backup with Kasten and our other portfolio, I mean, you get a really, really serious vendor around backing up all your data. So with that, I'm going to end my slide and say thank you for your time. I hope I inspired you a bit. And now it's
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Martin. Let me share mine. All right, I hope everyone can see my screen already.
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So hello, everyone. Thank you, Martin. I mean, that was quite insightful. So I have worked in VM for like a couple of times, but I mean, and that was a lot of new information for me too. Thank you for that.
That's good.
So yeah, hello everyone. So my name is Kosta Banerjee and I'm working with the Cloud Center of Excellence here at TD SYNNEX. And what I'll be taking you through in the next couple of minutes is about I'll be talking about the click-to-run solutions that we offer to our partners and which are offered on the Streamline platform. So moving on. So click-to-run solutions, as the name says, so these are quite comprehensive, automated, and repeatably deployable solutions that we present to our partners. So as you can see that under the hood, these click-to-run solutions are using the most popular AWS and vendor solutions like that of Veeam. So, I mean, at the moment, there are about 15 click-to-run solutions that are on offer on a Streamline platform, and with more on the way. I mean, so you'll keep seeing this list grow over the months and years to come. But then you might be wondering that why do you need click-to-run solutions? I mean, you can just use Veeam, I mean, like how it is, or you can use the AWS solutions like how they are. But the thing is that, so as you understand that most of these solutions, they are quite matured and they're quite comprehensive in their own ways. So they come with their own list of configurations. I mean, different kind of options for deployments and so on. So, and that could be a little too much for many of you. So it could be like I mean, you don't even might need to do all of those configurations, let alone even know about it. So what our experts at TD SYNNEX has done for you is that they have packaged these solutions into these easy to use click-to-run solutions. And what they do is that they have pre-configured many of these options, and thus leaving you typically with the options that are actually meaningful or make sense to you. I mean, you do not actually need to use all of these options if you're using the bare naked solution right from them, right in their original way, in their original form. So that's where click-to-run solutions come in and making the deployment process a lot easier, quicker, and not to forget, risk-free. If you look at the click-to-run solution catalog here, so we have different kind of offerings for the click-to-run solutions, starting right with core infrastructure services, with data storage services, security-related services, and last but not the least, we also have VM backup and replication also packaged in and as a click-to-run solution and offered to our partners. Now, in the upcoming slides, what I'm trying to do is that I'm going to take you through the process, I mean, a high level understanding of what actually is a click-to-run solution with the VM backup and replication, and what is the experience like and how it helps you actually. So the overall deployment process has been broadly broken down into three major steps. The first being the purchase and the role creation. The second, again, the configuration deployment. Doing the configuration, the little configuration that we have left you with, and the license application and post-deployment configuration. So let's talk about the purchase and role creation. So this is a screenshot of how the solutions look like on the Streamline platform. So similar to a VM, we have the complete list and catalog of solutions listed up there. Once you select the VM solution, it will then take you to this page, which asks you to like click on the buy option, which is not here in the screenshot. It's a little down there. But yeah, you select this option, then you purchase this click-to-run solution for VM. And then that at the end asks you to create a role. Now, what is this role about? So this is nothing but an AWS IAM role. Now, this role is like you are giving permission to deploy these infrastructure, the infrastructure you need to run your VM solution. So it is like you're giving them permission to deploy and create these infrastructure resources in your AWS account. And the most important thing is that after the deployment is over, this role will be deleted. So there will be no permission, no privilege, anything left behind which people or someone unauthorized could fiddle with. So as soon as the solution is deployed, this rule will be deleted. Now, next we move on to how do you configure the deployment? So this is the screenshot that you see up here. So of course, this is not the complete list of configuration options that you get. So there is a little more, but then there are some basic configuration options which are given to you, which are more than enough for you to do a quick deployment of VM on AWS. That again has also been divided into like a couple of major categories. The first is the infrastructure sizing and specifications, as the name already says. So you decide what kind of VM or what kind of EC2 instance do you need to run your VM solution on, and you can configure that. You can choose what kind of OS, even though at the moment you're only running it on Windows machines, but then later on, maybe in the future, if it is also available on other platforms, you'll get that, and so on and so forth. Next is about the network configuration. So in this part of the configuration, you choose to decide, you choose that which VPC or which subnets are you going to run your VM appliance on. So at the moment, we do not offer. So I mean, at the moment, the development is going on where it also allows you to create an entirely new VPC while you are configuring your click-to-run solution for VM. So, but at the moment, you're only using an existing VPC and you're doing all other necessary network configuration to run and deploy your VM solution. And last but not the least, access controls. So again, in this list of configuration, it also allows you to define and decide who would be given access to get access to your appliance, to your VM appliance, and how to give your VM appliance the permission to connect to the S3 bucket, which will eventually be used for the actual storage of the backup. Now, as soon as you're done with all these configuration options, you have given in all the required input and the details, you then straight go ahead and deploy your solution. Now, the last thing that you're left with, so after the deployment of your solution is completed, you would have a running EC2 instance in your account, which would host the VM solution. You can then you can log into your AWS console and you can get remote access to your EC2 machine. And then there comes the last part of this deployment process where you have to log into your EC2 instance. You can start up that EC2 instance would already have VM installed in it. Now you simply have to go start up your VM and then feed it or configure it with your license, with your existing license that you carry on with you already. So as simple as that. So you don't need to do anything else. So you have an EC2 instance ready with your Vim installation. You just have to go feed your license and that's it. And you're all ready to use it and do whatever you want with it. So that's as easy as it is. So I mean, if you have any further questions, if you need a demo, if you need to understand even more that how the click-to-run solution for VM works, you can get in touch with me or the team, and we'll be more than happy to give you a demonstration of how the actual solution looks in blood and flesh. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. I hope this was valuable for all our partners attending. In order to get access to the click-to-run solutions, you need to have access to our Stream on Ion platform, which is the multi-platform you're using both for AWS, Google, and Azure. And if you need support in like doing the clicks to do the click-to-run solution, reach out to the local BDM, and we will set you in contact with our architect or the factory team in order to support you. It is pretty straightforward, but you might want to have a little support from the architect the first time in order to do it correctly. But yeah, we are here to help you. It will be recorded, as you know. It will be recording will be placed on the landing page, and we look forward to see you in our next webinar, the 25th of January, which are on AWS information security and continuity. We like well-architected review and how TD SYNNEX can deliver the VAR, the well-architected review, together with you toward project you might have. So thank you all for attending. Thank you all for our presenters. So see you all later. Thank you. I will stop the recording.